So I want to thank everybody for coming in tonight. We really appreciate it. I have a couple of people to thank. The folks over at Epson for their continued support, American Photography, Pro Photo Daily, Photo Shelter, B&H for always helping out whenever they can and whichever way they can. So we thank them very much. So tonight we have Donna Ferrato, we have Zave Smith, and we're going to start off with Lamar Burrows. Lamar, it's all yours.
Okay, so I want to begin by talking a little bit about my background because I think it's important for what I learned in graduate school. I went to City College and got a master's in English and creative writing. And it was a very rigorous program. And I thought I knew how to read. And after all, I had a bachelor's degree, I knew how to read. But when I got to graduate school, the thing that they emphasized was academics and research and things of that nature. And it's called the reliability of the writer, right? How can we trust this writer to tell us what they're writing? And so you have to know the background and what their influences were, what maybe their politics were, what they wrote in the past to give them some credibility to write about what they wrote about. So I thought about that before this talk, and I said, how can folks trust me as a photographer that the images that I'm taking, I have some authenticity to create these images and just present them to the world? So, in thinking about it, part of my education was taking 2 courses in journalistic writing with Claudia Dreyfus. She's a writer for the New York Times. And so I didn't know anything about journalism other than that course. And so to make this transition from wanting to be a writer to a photographer, which really wasn't an ambition of mine. I really thought I was going to be a polemicist writing these polemical essays on race, because at that time I had done my thesis on stereotypes. And so I was going to go on to a doctoral program, but that didn't happen. I got married and that thing crashed and burned, so I didn't go in that direction. So I had time on my hand, and I had a camera. I've always had a camera, and this is around 2007. And I had decided to take it upon myself to go around the 5 boroughs of New York City and just photograph every neighborhood of color that took of interest in me. And then I just expanded from neighborhoods of color to just every borough, to its bridges, beaches, you name it. I just went around the whole city of New York for a year and change. And when that project ended, I didn't know what else to do as far as photography is concerned. So I was in this little group that was meeting at B&H Photo, and I think it was Wednesday nights. They had this group of photographers, and I was a part of that group. And I asked one of the senior persons, I said, I did this project on the city of New York. And
Burroughs, I'm sorry to interrupt. Don't forget to share your screen.
Okay, so I got to get back to the images. Do I do it here? How do I get back to the images? To my website.
Share.
You should hit the share button and you'll see all the different tabs you have open.
Yeah, I have this one, but I don't see my, oh, here it is. Let me go to.
There you go.
Okay, let me go here. Okay, so this is the first project in Harlem, and I'm going to put it on a slideshow, and it's going to just keep going as I'm talking. So he said, photograph something you know. And at this time, it's 2007, 2008, and this was when gentrification was really starting to make its presence felt. And you would hear people on the street expressing their fears about Black people going to be pushed out of Harlem, and where we're going to go. We're going to go to the Bronx, wherever people are going to move to. But it was a palpable concern. And my day job, I work in mental health. I've been in working in mental health for over 17 years in forensic psychiatry. And one of the things you learn about mental health is stressors, and stressors can cause people to have problems with sleep and eating and things of that nature. And so when you're involuntarily being displaced from your home, you experience these kinds of anxiety. And so it came to me as a health issue more than just simply having people forced to move out of where they live for maybe for all of their lives or most of their lives, like myself. So I didn't have any idea about the project or doing the project. It was just something that I was thinking about. And you hear this cliche, a little birdie said, do it, right? So it was like a little birdie that said, you know, you need to do this. And I didn't know how to go about documenting a community. So I was able to remember the course in journalistic writing about being objective and not being involved with the subjects. And so I started with these questions, and you can see with each image, there's the question, how do you feel about gentrification or the changes occurring in Harlem? And I went around with a clipboard, and I had the folks that they could write in on the clipboard. There was these spaces to put their comments. And I wanted to be as democratic about this as I could. If I found a male, I wanted a female. If I found a younger person, I wanted to find an older person. So as you can see from the images, they're a good representation of this community. And it took me 3 weekends to get all these images. And one of the questions I had to myself was, what am I going to ask these folks, and why should they allow me to photograph them? And so there was an article in the New York Times about gentrification by this professor at Columbia University, and he was a psychologist. And I guess he was doing some research on people being displaced through gentrification. So I had that on my clipboard. And then I heard about the Honickman Foundation for Documentary Studies at Duke University. And it was a call for entries. So I had the application for that, and I would show them why I was asking these questions is because it was going to be for this contest at Duke University. And if I won, of course, it would be great. It would result in a book. And so I was surprised they didn't need as much convincing that I thought they would need, because they were all concerned about this possibility of being moved or evicted, because a lot of folks were being evicted. A lot of folks were being evicted because they were either behind their rent, or they were illegally subletting, or other reasons that landlords would literally try to force people out by intimidation and things of that nature. So it wasn't like this thing that was in the back of people's mind. It was in the forefront of people's mind because it was happening all the time. So as I approached each person, I just said, you know, here's the clipboard. You can write it in, and sometimes I would write in what their responses were. And at the end of the project, I tallied up the responses, and it was a surprise to me that 50%, literally 50% of the people that you're looking at now were split. I was surprised by that. I thought they would all be absolutely opposed to it. They were in favor of it with a caveat. And the caveat was they welcomed gentrification because of the new stores that would come in and things of that nature, but they still felt it should be affordable. That was one thing that was of their primary concern, that the neighborhood should remain affordable with folks or white folks coming into Harlem. So, of course, after I submitted the project, I used the word of course, it was rejected. Mary Ellen Mark was the curator or the juror for the call for entries, and I didn't win. And then I said, what am I going to do after this? I did this project and it got rejected. And so I was fortunate enough to meet and get to know Deborah Willis a little bit. And those of you who know Deborah Willis, she's the chair and professor of photography at the Tisch School at the NYU. And I told her about my project, and she told me that the Studio Museum in Harlem was looking for photographers that was contemporary doing current work in Harlem. And through her assistance, I got my photos in this book here. 5 images are in this book. And when the New York Times did the book review, they picked one of my photographs along with Roy DeCarava, Jamel Shabazz, Gordon Parks, Drew Bay were among some of the photographers that that was in the article in the New York Times. So now I'm in this book, and and she was saying, keep working on the project, keep working on the project. And so the first thing I started doing was mostly focusing on events and activities. And then I realized that, coming back to what I said earlier about what gives me authenticity to write about this community, was that I began to network with everyone I knew in Harlem that could get me in someplace. So whether it was a business, whether it was an organization, an event, I was allowed to come in because I was considered a son, or we use the term a son of Harlem, that they knew that I was not an outsider. And so there was an element of trust. And with that trust, I said to myself, and I said to them, that I'm not going to betray your trust by using your images to profit off of them. And I still do that to this day. Every image I have, I never have sold any of the images from my galleries or anything to any kind of establishment, anything like that. Later on in the project, I met Dr. Manning Marable, he's deceased now, was a professor of Afro-American Studies at Columbia University. And he was giving a talk at this bookstore called the U-Man Bookstores, which is no longer there. It was on between 125th and 124th and 8th Avenue by the Magic Johnson Theater. And I told him about the project. And as I was telling him about the project, he brought something to my attention that I hadn't thought about. He said, what you're doing is a major anthropological, sociological, and historical document. So you're not just taking photographs. You are building an archive of this community in transition. It's very important work, and you need to keep working on it. At that time, I had given myself 5 years, which is 2008 when it began, to about 2000. In 5 years, I figured by 2000 or 2008, 2013, 2012, I would be finished with it. So I just kept soldiering on and adding and adding and adding and adding images to my archive. And at this point, I have roughly between 75,000, I don't know, 77,000, because I keep adding to it. So I know I have around 75,000 images. Now, of course, 75,000 images aren't all beautiful, sharp, focused images, but it's the body of work. And so I wanted to show tonight that work. I have about, I don't know, 10 galleries on my other website, which I'm going to switch over to. And then I want to spend some time showing my other projects that I do outside of Harlem that gave me an opportunity to see a different part of the city of New York that I like to share. So I'm going to switch out of this one here.
Burroughs,
Yeah.
through the process of all this shooting, what have you seen as far as the way you shoot? How's your progression come?
Well, I'll start by saying this book here
Yeah,
is the book that, as you know, W. Eugene Smith, right? He's the father or the architect of the photographic essay. And so using his methodology of a series of images was what I followed through. But also this book here, Eli Reed's Black in America, was the book that told me I could do it. When I saw his book, I said, wow, this is the template. This is the Bible for me, that a Black man can go and record Black people and show them with dignity and respect and not stereotypes. So those two photographers influenced me, and I see my work now sometimes I kind of cringe. I look at some photos I took, 7 years ago. Oh my God, it's terrible. And so I've actually seen the evolution of my uh, development as a photographer. And just like when I was in the graduate program, I had to study Shakespeare and uh, uh, the writers now. But you study the masters, the classics,
Right.
and great writing. I mean, I did a course on Shakespeare, and that was the course that taught me how to do research. So the same thing with photography. You never want to take a mediocre photograph. You want a photograph to convey something other than just a basic snapshot.
Right.
And so if I'm going to, and in terms of Manning Marable, document this community, I want to, or I strive to make great images.
Great. And Burroughs, if you could switch over to the other monitor now, because we saw the photographs are repeating.
Okay, so this one here is what I call my introductory or entree into my website. And so this is an example of me being allowed in someone's home. And his name is Nate. And Nate and I met, we were both in a joint show at the Arsenal in the Department of Parks. And so we were both allowed to exhibit there. And I met him, and he had this huge painting of a Black family. And I introduced myself to him. I didn't know he lived in Harlem. And once he introduced himself to me, I said, yeah, I'm in Harlem. I'm looking for an artist. Would you allow me? And he said, sure, come over to my apartment. So this is in one of his bedrooms where he converted this little space to do his work. So I'm not going to have time to go through every image. I just wanted to show it as an example. So those of folks who are listening in, and I'll talk a little bit about this photograph because in the 20s and the 30s, I don't know if it was primarily Black people, but people have rent parties. And so they would have people over, musicians or what have you, and folks would pay, and so they could pay their rent, and they would have like a band or a singer or whatever. And this tradition stays or is still alive in this one person's home, and she used to be the manager of St. Nick's Pub, which was on 148th Street in St. Nicholas. And a lot of famous jazz artists played there. And so the fellow on the saxophone, his name is Bill, his last name now. But anyway, so this is at our apartment, and she allowed me in, and I was able to shoot it. And it's a throwback to an era when that's how a lot of Black people pay their rent, by having rent parties. And the next image is sort of the same thing.
What a great idea.
This is Paula Jazz, and she's up on Edgecombe Avenue with Rudy Dreers. And how come I can't think of her name right now? But this escapes me. But she did the same. She's doing the same thing. And every Sunday around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, she has Paula Jazz, and she invites certain jazz artists to sit in, and that's what they do. This is backstage at Mama I Want to Sing. This is about 5-6 years ago with Va Higginson. And these are the actors backstage, I guess, preparing for them to go on. This is a store that was called Scotty's Furniture. That's Scotty. And through gentrification, he lost his store.
I can't connect either. Invitations are not.
This is a restaurant called Sherman's. There were about 5 of them in Harlem. And the last location was on between 145th and 146th Street. And they fell victim to the, remember when they said they want to make restaurants have grades A, B, C, and so forth and so on. So they weren't able to raise the money because the food they sold was the old, but the traditional Black diet, and Blacks were moving more towards salads and things of that nature, but they were selling a lot of soul food. And so they weren't getting as many customers as they used to get. And so they went bankrupt because they couldn't get the upgrades to the restaurant to get that A. And so they wound up going out of business. And that was the last restaurant of a chain of about 5 of them. And they were a family run business. This fellow here, the ophthalmologist, is actually Black. He's not white. He just looks white. And I got to know him. He let me into his office and shot that. This is the dentist. He was actually my dentist. But prior to him being my dentist, he allowed me into his practice. His name is Dr. Williams, he's a friend of mine. And to show him doing what he does. And so these images, which is the name of my project, is Harlem Hidden in Plain Sight. So these are things that are happening in the community that if you're just walking around, you won't see things like this. You know, I see the tourists that, you know, not now because of COVID, but those of you who have been to Harlem know that the tourist buses would come and they would, you know, walk around and with their cameras and stuff, but they have no idea what's going on in a lot of these spaces. Now, I'm on the top of the Polo Grounds, which is that housing project on 155th Street where Yankee Stadium used to be, right? And so down is the basketball tournament. It's the Harlem Rucker tournament. It was called the EBC, or the Entertainers Basketball Classic. And that's where Julius Erving played, and Kobe Bryant, Shaq. You go down the list of all these.
Lou Alcindor as well, right?
I think he came, but I was before my time. When I say before my time, I think he must have came in the 70s or late 80s. But definitely Dr. J, definitely Kobe, definitely Shaq, and a whole host of other folks. So I'm going to get to the next photo down the road. I'm going to scroll move forward. But the promoter of this basketball tournament, his name is Greg Marius, and I got to know him, and he paid me actually to be the official photographer for the tournament for about 3 seasons. And so I will get to that as we scroll down. This is the woman, her name is Dorothy Hughes. She had the first Black-owned business that sold office supplies. And you see she wrote a book about her being priced out of Harlem. And this is Carolyn Adams, and she was the first African-American principal dancer in the Paul Taylor Dance Company. And she was also a professor of modern dance at the Juilliard School. And she was giving a talk at this community center by Marcus Garvey Park or Mount Morris Park. And you can see on the right-hand side, there's a little digital voice recorder. That's my digital voice recorder recording her talk about how she became a dancer and everything like that. She owns a brownstone in Harlem. And she wrote a book, Perry Williams, about Sugar Hill, which was the section of Harlem on Edgecombe Avenue where the Black elites or the upper class Blacks lived, and it was called Sugar Hill because the folks who had the money had the sugar. That was the term they used. And so basically the better educated, the professional class of Blacks lived on Edgecombe Avenue, and that goes from 155th to about 145th and 45th Street. This is the last day at Lenox Lounge, and the owner, Alan, I forget his name now, he was not wise in purchasing the building where Lenox Lounge was, and as a result, the owner raised the rent by $10,000, and so he couldn't afford to pay the rent, and he lost Lenox Lounge. And Billie Holiday actually sang in this lounge, and that was the last night. That was in 2013, December 31st, and the next day was January 1st, 2014. He had to be out that day. It's sad. This is okra, which is the staple of Black Americans, sweet potatoes. And so that's a part of the culture of Harlem, foodstuffs that you can get. This is the Harlem baptismal. It goes back to Baby Daddy Grace at the, oh, let me see if I can find it now. You'd be surprised how much stuff you use in your brain, you can remember it all the time when you need to. So it's the United House of Prayer Church. And this began back in the 1920s, where his congregants would go out in the street and with a fire hose, they would baptize these people en masse. And this still goes on to this day. And I think I shot this in 2013. Which is also a part of Harlem tradition and culture.
So Burroughs, you're sort of walking that tightrope between historian, photographer, which makes the body of work so much, has such value in the way you document it. I mean, do you find where do you find yourself more as a photographer, a historian, documentarian? Like, how do you see yourself now?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because you have no idea how many photography outlets, whatever, have been rejecting my project. And I thought that it would be easily explained the significance of this project. So it's all three. It's historical, it's sociological, it's anthropological, but it has to be explained in a way that I think people can grasp the magnitude of it. Because
and you're comfortable in all those spaces.
Well, I mean, yeah, because if you think about Harlem, and I was at this talk, I have the book.
Burroughs, you're selling more people's books tonight than anything else.
Well, I mean, this book here, I don't have the cover, but it's by Jonathan Gill. And this book talks about when Manhattan was farmland, right, north of Central Park. The slaves were the ones who, when they laid out the grid, felled the trees and cleared the land for the streets to be built in Harlem. So Harlem actually was, if you think about it, according to this writer, this author, was literally built by Black people. But it wasn't built for Black people, it was built for white people. And it was later in the 20s when Blacks moved in large numbers to Harlem because they was pushed out of San Juan Hill, which is where Lincoln Center is. So, so that's part of history too, right? So people don't know that story, how Harlem came to be in terms of the land it was on, just like the Seneca tribes in Central Park, right? Because Blacks lived in Central Park at one time. So if people have to have this kind of historical knowledge of this community, and why was the Great Migration to New York City? Because they were escaping South because the oppression and persecution in the South, and came to New York. And just like around the world, people, immigrants come to the United States, and it's a brain drain. I mean, we get the best, the most talented come to the United States. And so Harlem was attracting artists and intellectuals, educated folks to be in Harlem. And then so Harlem became this epicenter of intelligentsia. That's what they call it, the Harlem Renaissance. And so this is part of the history. As a matter of fact, this photograph here is a result of, is the Dance Street of Harlem. It was founded by Arthur Mitchell. And Arthur Mitchell was the first Black ballet dancer choreographer at the New York City Ballet. And he founded this school. So again, all this stuff that I'm talking about, not stuff, but, and this is just a short period of time, right? Just have a short period of time to continue talking about it. In these photographs, the story behind these photographs, that's important. And I just want to move on real quick to this picture here, and I showed you the basketball court, and that's Mark Cuban, owner of the Dallas Mavericks, a billionaire. Why is Mark Cuban at a basketball tournament in Harlem? As a matter of fact, the tournament was over. But the reason why Mark Cuban came, and that's Greg Maris, he's deceased, was because Kevin Durant scored, I think it was like 65 or close to 70 points in a game. And he wanted to see with his own eyes this court where Kevin Durant scored like 60, 70 points in one game. And so Greg Maris, who knew me, called me and says, listen, Mark Cuban's coming, he just photographed me and him together. I'm like, okay, great. So I grabbed my camera and I went up there and I photographed him. And that's a story.
Yeah. So Burroughs, how do you get financing to get this into a book or to get this into a university to, keep this archive?
That is the $1 million question. That's what this project is all about.
You need a rep.
This book here.
Another book he's showing.
You see this book?
Yes.
Eli Reed, this is what I want. This is what I want.
Okay.
My project needs to be in a book just like this. And so if I can find a publisher who would take an interest in this project, I'll be more than happy. I'll be overjoyed. In addition, I have audio recordings from the folks I interview, and they tell me their story. Now the person with the guitar, you can't see his face, his name is Tyrone Fly Ty Gavon. He was the lead guitar player for BT Express. And they're in a place called Paris Blues. They went out of business last year, or actually, well, the owner of the bar died last year and no one took it over. So now it's gone, it's abandoned. But the woman who's singing, her name is Annette St. John, and she's actually the same woman I sent you the photo that you posted to send out.
Yes.
But she was at a place called Jenny's, Jen, I forget the name of the place. It was over by the Red Rooster. Mr. Chef, what's his name, Samuel Markinson's place. And so she was singing with him in the bar, and you see how close I am, right? I shot that with a 15mm lens with a flash because it was pitch black in there. I mean, they didn't have a spotlight in there. They only had the sconces on the wall, and got that shot. But, and this is the last in the series for this gallery. And so someone says, who's Leonard Harper? Like, who is this guy? Why has he got a street named after him? And the reason why he has a street named after him, because during the Harlem Renaissance, he's the grandson of Leonard Harper. And his grandfather was the person who came up with the idea of the review. Now, what's a review? Well, years ago, when you would go to clubs, it would either be a comedian or a dancer or a singer, but he put it all together. And so when you would go to a movie theater and they would have these shows on while they're waiting for the movie to start at a cabaret show, what have you. So his father was the one who came up with the idea. And in addition to that, he also coached Fred Astaire and the Marx Brothers about these theatrical reviews. So that's why his street is named after him. So, I mean, I'm still answering your question, is who would see the value of this and say, man, I could sell 1 million of these books or whatever, but so I have it, it's just someone finding me. I've been reaching out and reaching out, but what's that song by Little Richard, keep it knocking and you can't come in?
Yeah. Well, you know what? next week, the week after, you and I should have a conversation. Maybe we can just brainstorm some ideas on how we can help you. You know, just maybe just ideas will come. And other people who've produced books. Let us see. So if you could just stop sharing, right, Jay?
Okay.
Yeah. And but you know, Burroughs, hold up the book, Burroughs, that your images are in, so we can see that book. You showed everyone else's book.
This is Studio Museum Harlem's book.
Okay, so you're in there.
It was only Press did this.
Great. Okay, so you're in that book.
Yeah, it was only Press.
Okay. So, Burroughs, that was really that was great work. Thank you so much. You've enlightened. I'm sure you've enlightened all of us, and the reviews here in the chat room. Everyone is really inspired by your work and recognizing how important it is.
So I can't thank you folks enough. I really can't.
And we'll have you back. I mean, get the book deal, and we'll have you back. We'll have you selling the book.
Okay, I gotta find a publisher.
All right, we'll work on that with you.
Okay.
I promise you.
Okay.
I promise you. All right, so we'll take a little bit of a break. We'll get you off. We'll get Zave in and get him to share his screen. If anyone wants to freshen up their glass of wine, like my wife is going to do for me, I hope. No. Yeah. If anyone has any questions for Lamar, you know, shoot them out. We can answer them. But I'll tell you, all those reviews, everyone's like loving it. Louise is loving it. Important, beautiful work. Ryan Tomko, great stuff. You know, just so I'm sure you get that. It's now you know, getting it to a place where it could be, you know, remain historically, because it is so important. But we'll work to, you know, we'll give you some ideas and see how we can pull that together. That would be great.
Millie grazie.
There you go. There you go. All right, so let's get Zave on. Where is Zave?
Let me see if he's back, Frank. He stepped up for a second.
He did.
Okay.
Okay.
He's back.
Unmute.
There you go, Zave. We hear you.
Okay, can you see the screen?
No,
Not
we
yet.
still see Lamar. You gotta stop sharing him. Now give it to Zave.
Okay, am I still sharing?
Okay, there we go. Now we have Zave.
Okay,
All right.
You're watching.
there we go. Seeing the screen?
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. First of all, I just want to thank you all tonight for, it's a cold, dark night, at least it is on the East Coast, and I appreciate you being here and listening to me babble for about 20 minutes or so.
Wait a second, Zave. We see Burroughs. We don't see you. I don't see you.
Let me see. Hold on one second. Let's take a look. There he is. Hold on. You should be set.
Okay, so you can see a screen that says Zave Smith Photography, the faded back picture of a post guy.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. So the body of work I'm going to present tonight is called Back to Work. And, you know, when COVID hit back in March, my wife and I kind of, like a lot of people, just kind of hid in our home. Didn't do much, barely ventured out, barely went to the grocery store. But after about 6-8 weeks of that, I started getting really antsy. So I decided to, with brainstorming with a couple friends of mine, decided to go out there and see what was going on. What was it like to be working during a time like this? So I created this body of work called Back to Work, where I went out and did some street photography. Now, to give you a little background, okay, this thing isn't clicking through. Let's see what we can do about that. Okay. I'm all frozen here.
There you go, Zave.
What's that?
I can see you.
No, but you can't. My screen is not moving.
Oh,
I can't go to the next slide. Here we go. Let me try this again. Sorry, folks. It all worked during the test on Monday. And of course, tonight it is not working. That is bizarre. One more trial here. And wow. My keynote froze up. Give me one. I'm not sure how to do this now. Okay. Keynote. Frank, why don't you let Donna go and give me a few minutes so no one's hanging here and figure out why suddenly my keynote's not working. Did you hear that, Frank?
Donna.
Yeah. I think it's just you and me, Zave.
Yeah, I'm.
No, I can hear you.
There. We see you.
We see you. We can hear you. It's just your screen is not.
Oh, now it's working.
Okay, get it back on. Share screen.
That's cool. And then we can watch everybody who's sitting looking at the screen, eating and drinking. That's even better. Cool. See how you.
Well, now share your screen, and that should do it.
It should. Let's see what happens, folks.
Yeah.
There we go. And if I hit play, hopefully it will play. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
So, my background is basically a commercial guy. Spent the last 30 years shooting for, various clients, like a lot of the pharmaceuticals, a lot of financials, lifestyle, and portrait photography. And it's been a long time since I've done any street photography at all, or any photography that wasn't set up and produced and directed or whatever. So I ventured out in the street. And the first place I went was a little town center about 2 miles from where I live called Media, PA. And basically to see what was going on there. Masked up, went out there. And of course, the first person I see is this woman who was working as a nurse in a pediatric center. They had like an outdoor area for people to be screened before they let them into the office. And this is kind of what I found in media. I was also fascinated and did a lot of photography of the stuff that COVID created, like this fashion mask on the street, which I found so interesting. The leftovers of COVID, maybe.
Don't see those.
I also got really fascinated by signage because, you have a company like this is Burger King, who probably spent a fortune hiring designers to design their storefronts and such. But during the time of COVID, they had to improvise, they had to put up warnings and this and that. And I found how that worked out to be visually fascinating. This guy wasn't working. He was just basically doing his laundry in a laundromat, and I asked him if he felt safe being in there. And he said, yeah, what the heck, why not? Right up the street from the laundromats, the regional post office, and a bunch of guys were outside masked up, sorting through their boxes of stuff for delivery. I asked this guy how he felt being out here, if he felt safe. And he's answered, I believe in God, I'll be safe.
So Zave, I have to ask you, for being a commercial shooter, everything set up, hair and makeup, all of that, how is it, to all of a sudden be a photojournalist where you're running around and just, getting guys in the street?
I find it to be fun. It was relaxing in some ways. I got to know almost everyone. I didn't photograph anyone that I didn't have permission to. I'd walk up to him. I say, hey, I'm Zave Smith. I'm a photographer. I'm doing a little documentary on these crazy times that we're living in. And would you mind talking and letting me shoot a portrait? So that gave me an opportunity to get to know anyone, you know, and I think it's why these portraits have a certain sense of intimacy to them. And if someone said no, I just walked away. It wasn't going to make a deal out of it. But most people said yes.
And you were comfortable with that, with not having an assistant, you know, no one working with lights and all of that? Was, I mean, was it a sense of freedom as well?
Yeah, I didn't have to pay anyone after the shoot.
Zave. Nice.
No, I actually enjoy that aspect of photography as much as I enjoy being the big shot on set with the crew. To me, it's really all about the pictures and picture creating. Sometimes you need lots of people around you to help create that image. You need the right clothing, you need the right makeup, you need the right set. And sometimes you go out there and you encounter life, and life itself becomes your set. And you just keep your eyes open and your heart open. I think the most important is keep both your eyes and your heart open to what's going on and tell a story. And it's really no different except for production values. This guy ran a pizza parlor, and his big money usually was for the lawyers because he's just down the block from the county courthouse. And he said his business at this point was about 20–25% of normal. Plus he hated being masked up with the hot ovens. So after I got my confidence shooting in the local neighborhood, I went into Center City, Philly, and I shot various neighborhoods. I started with a neighborhood called Market East, which basically goes from City Hall down to the Delaware River. Most of the people I encountered were working outdoors. They were either security people, construction people, maintenance people, and restaurateurs, and a few doctors and such. But, you know, the office workers weren't there. The schools were all closed. So these were mainly the people who were occupying Center City, Philly in this time period. I love this little group shot. They were all into being photographed. This guy, his business was really tourist dependent. He's not too far from Independence Mall. So he had two businesses, the pizza parlor, and he had a thing called Big Pedal Tours, where you put a bunch of drunks on this big box with a canopy on it and wheels, and they all pedal and get drunk. And obviously both businesses were not happening back in May. This is actually one of my favorite coffee shops in Philly, over on Third and Market, called Menagerie. They make a really, really good cappuccino. And talking to her, I asked her what it felt like to be working during the pandemic. And her answer, which I heard from several people, was she just felt really good being able to be there for the community. This is Washington Square Park, and was one of the doctors taking a little break from work, catching up on paperwork, being outside. Next area I went to is the Market West area, which basically goes from City Hall out to Amtrak's 30th Street Station. This is a very famous Philadelphia thing called Reading Terminal Market. I shot this probably around 11:30 in the day during lunchtime. Normally this place would be cheek and jowl with people. It'd be just crazy with people. Obviously it was just a few hardy folks and a security guard. That's me. This is 30th Street Station at 8:30 in the morning. Again, in normal times, it would be jammed with people catching trains to DC or up to New York or Boston. I asked these folks how it felt to be there now. He says it's lonely, and hopefully the crowds will be returning soon.
So, Zave, I mean, it'll sound like a dopey question, but how is it to shoot real people?
You know, in some ways it was easier. You know, I mean, even when I'm working with talent and models or executives, because I do a lot of executive portraiture, I tend to just let people present themselves. Unless I have a real need to really direct someone, I kind of like sometimes to step back and see what they'll do. Because I think the gesture, how someone carries himself, how they express their face, but just like what they do with their body can be very, very expressive. So even when I'm on set on a big commercial shoot, I will direct at times, and at times I'll just get really quiet and just let someone like breathe into it and relax and present themselves for who they are. Again, some of the things that we found around town, I guess this week we passed 250,000 deaths. I wish the date of this newspaper showed.
That wouldn't be hard to find.
No, I'm sure it isn't, but I just wish in the photo it had the date.
Yeah.
This is the Apple store on Walnut Street in Philly. Again, normally jammed. This is before retail reopened. In the last couple of years, I've had a few photos I've shot where I have this wonderful layering of things, the reflections. And when they work, they really work well. These three guys in their fancy suits were doormen at a high-end hotel and condo. I asked them how busy they were and if the people who lived there were there, and they said, no, the place is pretty empty. We have very little to do, but we have to be here every day. This is Suburban Station in Philly. This is probably towards the late afternoon, 4:30, 5 o'clock. Again, normally this place would be filled with people.
Dave, is this over like what period of time?
I started shooting in mid-May, and I finished this project about a month ago. So most of the bulk of the work was done from mid-May to, let's say, the 1st of July.
And what signifies for you the project is over?
I felt like I was done. I hit the point where I felt I wasn't adding anything anymore. Because of the nature of who I was photographing, you know, retail people, security people, restaurateurs, after a while, I didn't feel like I was adding to the story. It just felt finished.
Yeah.
But I'll show you where it's going. It's at the end. I asked this police officer or SEPTA security guy what it was like during the pandemic. He said, you still have to police. The next area of town I went to is the Italian market in South Philly. Some people call it the 9th Street Market, but it's mainly known as the Italian market. It is an old street market in Philly, lots of food on the street. It's a really interesting area because right now it's made up of old school Italian, recent immigrants from Asia, African-American entrepreneurs, and a lot of Latino entrepreneurs also. So you basically have 4 different ethnic groups running this area of chaos. This is one of the more established places in the Italian market, is a fish store on the corner of 9th and Washington, whose name I do not remember. I actually photographed him about 5 years ago when the Pope came to visit Philly. We were shooting some spots for the campaign to promote the Pope's visit, and we shot in his store, and I photographed him for that campaign. This is a couple years later, and he's still at it. When I asked this guy at this pizza shop what it was like to work, and again, he had a very similar answer. He just said, I feel a tremendous amount of neighborhood support, and I'm glad I can be here for the community. The people were actually pretty friendly. I think they're, you know, we all are used to a certain, especially people who work public-facing jobs, are used to a certain amount of interaction in any given day, and that's kind of gone. And so when anyone comes up and says hello, they're just like almost, you know, thrilled to talk to someone. Again, this is some of the crazy signage I saw. This is obviously a Mexican restaurant. And that's the inside of it. He was very, very proud of his business. Very proud. You can see it just through the mask. One of the things I kept thinking about is I spent some time living in Israel back in the 70s. And this really reminded me of shooting Muslims because, with Muslims, with the face coverings and stuff, really all you can see are the eyes. And I keep thinking about that during this time of COVID, that you have to tell the story basically through people's eyes. After I got done with the Italian market, I went up to the Temple University area. It's interesting because Temple's actually a client of my design firm. So I've been up on the campus a little bit in the last few months. When I visited Temple, this is probably in mid-June, it was a nice warm day. All I saw was a smattering of faculty, a few students, security people, and maintenance people. This is a campus usually with 40,000 kids on it. I just love this guy's little truck with the ladder on it and his tool belt. I just thought it was so cute. He was a very sweet guy too. In Philly, we have some neighborhoods have a thing called, oh God, I forgot the legal name for it. Basically, where the shopkeepers in that neighborhood pay a little extra tariff or tax to have the streets cleaned and polished and a higher level of civic services to make their shopping area nice. And he was one of the street cleaners of this particular neighborhood. And I'm thinking, here's a guy who is on one of the lowest castes of American life. And yet he was one of the happiest people I've ever met. He was just a joy to sit and talk to for a few minutes. This guy had a locksmith thing. He was out there repairing someone's, it was plumbing, excuse me, plumbing service. These two guys said they'd been manning this truck, this vegetable truck, since the 80s, for about 30, 40 years now. Business was very off. They didn't have the students buying their fruits and vegetables. Nice pineapples. And this is the last shot I shot up near Temple University. I thought between the white BMW and the boarded up place, it just said everything I needed to say about the time period.
Yeah, that's a perfect shot to end it.
So then I was really curious what it's like to work in, companies that are actually functioning. And the First Look Display Group happens to be a client of my branding company, Exhilarate. So I called them up and said, hey, you mind if I come up and take some photos? I knew they were operating. So we went in there and saw what it was like to work in. They're basically a fabrication shop, works mainly in metal and plastic, making signage for people. But during the COVID time, they were going to close down, and their clients started calling up and said, hey, we don't need a sign, but can you make dividers for us? So they suddenly pivoted from making signage for companies to making, the dividers that restaurants and bars and other companies can use to isolate their workers. I actually operated a drill press back in the 70s for a couple months.
Yeah, Zave, looking back, do you wish or do you reconsider not getting any interviews?
I actually shot almost about 20% of the people I actually shot some footage.
Well, you did.
And recorded little interviews. The problem I have is the audio quality was not very good. So I actually had them up on my website for a little while. I enjoyed them, but I must admit I'm a little better still photographer than videographer at this stage of my career. So I don't know. I just enjoy the stills a bit more.
No, but any regret though?
No, not really. Not really. I think if I could go back with a sound guy with me, that would be really cool. But to do really good video and really good sound at the same time at the level I would want it to be done at is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Especially in these little you got to remember, these people are all in the middle of their workday.
Right.
They give me a lot of time. It wasn't like we made appointments and I went there with the 2020 crew or the 60-minute crew and we set up an interview. These people were in the middle of their workday. Their boss is, 20 feet away. So, I got a minute, 30 seconds, 2 minutes tops, with any one of these people.
Right.
From there, I went to the 69th Street shopping district in Philly. Again, 69th Street is a very interesting area because it's a very multi-ethnic part of town. So when you go through these shops, they really service, many, many different immigrant communities. She sold basically beauty supplies. She was a little suspicious. I found the Asian folk were probably the most suspicious of me, of any of the groups I photographed. She sold stuff for nurses. So she had, stethoscopes and shoe coverings and nurses' outfits and things like that. What I found really interesting about these stores is how much merchandise they would jam into, the couple hundred square feet they had. This barbershop had just reopened, and he was very happy to be back to work. I asked her, it was a fashion boutique, women's fashion, how safe she felt. And she said she felt very, very safe. But every time I look at this photograph, all I see is apprehension and fear. And that could be a reaction to me and not the COVID, but, we'll leave it. Another person in that store, I just love this woman's attitude of she was someone who obviously really enjoyed doing what she was doing. This guy had a men's fashion boutique and had some really good hats. And I almost bought a couple off him, but I kept thinking to myself, where am I going to wear them? I just love, he sold essential oils. And I just love the texture and color of his skin. It's just fascinating and beautiful. The 69th Street Market is also a big transit hub here in town. From there, I went over to 52nd Street area. Now, it sounds, for someone who's not familiar with Philly, that would just be a few blocks away, but it's actually on the other side of town. This area was very hard hit by the post Floyd George riots. And when I was there, it was about 6 weeks after that, and the shops were just reopening. They got looted, they got burned. It was a tough situation for these merchants. The 52nd Street area has a lot of Muslims in that neighborhood. This guy basically sold women's fashion to the Muslim community. He was a guy who had a contracting business. Again, really happy and very proud of what he was doing. Street vendor in that neighborhood. It was a bookstore, and when I walked in this place, he was shooting a little film of himself talking about this book, which I just thought was fantastic. So I tried to line up the shot in some way you could see his camera and him almost like demoing what he was doing. One of these, again, these layers of reflections, which I find so fascinating when they work. He had an income tax service. So this time of year, he normally wouldn't be that busy anyhow, but he had just reopened. And that's the inside of his shop. So normally during the income tax season, I have 10, 20 guys working for me. So after going through the 52nd Street area, which is probably one of the most poor shopping districts in Philly, I thought, what would be the opposite of this? And I thought, King of Prussia Mall. So I went out to the King of Prussia Mall. It was very strange because I fully expected that within about 5 minutes of being there, some security guard would kick me out because they, malls are private property, so you have no rights to be in there. I was there all afternoon. No one bothered me. I was very surprised. That's the security guard. He didn't see me. It was one of the few times I photographed someone who I didn't ask permission. Your empty shop. I had a wonderful time talking to this guy. He used to be a middle school teacher, but now he's had this comic book shop for the last 10 years. Had a lot of interesting insights into the people who buy comics. a jewelry repair guy. Little overview of the mall. I must admit, I was very surprised how busy it was. I expected this place to be empty. I'm not one who goes to malls hardly ever, so I had nothing to gauge it on. But people seem to like going to malls. I've always wondered just how many going out of business signs you need so people know if you're going out of business or not.
That'll look like it's covered.
She sold balloons, had one of those little carts in the middle. You know, when you're dealing with these retail places, you really can't get into, if you're going to ask permission, the chains, you know, because the first thing they say is they have to talk to the manager, and then the manager's got to talk to the regional manager, and by the time you're done with that, you've aged 10 years. So, but these independent, like small stores or carts or kiosks, you can actually work with these people. Ice cream shop owner. This guy repaired phones, basically the glass. If you shattered the glass on your phone. So by this time it is probably mid-June, and it was just, I shot this right before or after 4th of July weekend. I would have to go look at my records to know. During the summertime, Philadelphia decamps to the Jersey Shore. Most families have the same place they rent year after year, same week, same house. The whole clan goes down there. And one of the more interesting Jersey Shore communities is Wildwood. And I find Wildwood fascinating because it's really, again, a very multi-ethnic working class community where if you go just a little further north to Stone Harbor or Avalon, you're basically dealing with very upper middle class communities. So I went and spent the afternoon photographing the people who are working in Wildwood. You know, I must admit, my wife and I do not spend a lot of time down the shore, and the once or twice I've been to Wildwood, I had a little bit of a snob attitude towards the place because it's, you know, very down market, a little bit dirty. When I went this time, I just felt loved. I just felt like the people were so happy to be there and so friendly. It just was a very warm experience, very enriching.
So did you just say you were a snob, Dave?
Yes, I did.
That's what I thought I heard.
Yeah. I'm very snobby about a few little things, about scotch, about coffee, and who I hang out with, I guess. Not really, but yeah, a little bit. I'm a photography snob, that's for sure. These two guys were from, I believe, Poland, working there for the summer, and they just had the best smiles. You just gotta love people like this. Police officer, and I will say that the mask went on when the camera became visible. This guy and his partner, who I have a photograph in a moment, were from somewhere in the South. First time they had worked Wildwood during the summer, and they just kept saying, "We love it here, and we're coming back next year." And they had one of these booths where you throw a dart and you maybe win a prize. Again, I was just fascinated by how much stuff you could stick into a store. And this guy had owned the store for about 20 years and was quite proud of it and loved being a retailer in Wildwood. You gotta love people who love what they do. I'm a sucker for curly hair, what can I say? This guy was a absolute brilliant sideshow barker. You know, he had one of these booths where you spray this water pistol, and if you get the target, you win a prize. And he was so masterful and full of energy and just sucked money out of people's pocket in such a smooth way. You had to admire it. This was a little, I found disturbing. It is you shoot paint guns. And their claim to fame, their shtick is that you get a live person to shoot your paint gun at. And why it would be more thrilling to shoot a person versus just a target, I don't know, but it obviously works for them. I just love the color of this guy's skin and the texture and the paint's coming off. He was wearing this really heavy duty plastic or rubber outfit. And it must have been just uncomfortable as all hell in there, you know, between the heat and the rubber and the whole thing. Nice guy, though. This guy was very practiced at being photographed. This is another guy, ran this henna and tattoo parlor and just loves what he does. And I think his smile kind of shows that. Like a lot of these people, their love for what they do was in Wildwood was contagious. And with that, I'm almost done, but I have one more thing. I once read, I don't remember who the author was, but he talked about the most important thing that you do when you finish writing a book is the next morning you sit down with a blank page and you write your next one. You start your next book. And I thought, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So as I said earlier, I felt like this project was done, but I pivoted it now and I'm starting a new project, which the first shoot was today. Them calling The Show Must Go On. And I'm basically reaching out to a bunch of different regional theater companies here in Philly and photographing people who were going to be in a show and can't be in a show because the theaters are closed. So this is my first one of this series. She plays a character in an absurdist theater called The Old Woman. And in the play, the old woman's always standing on bar stools or on chairs when she gives her lines. So that's The Old Woman, and that's the beginning of my next project.
All right, when that's done, you have to come back and show us how that turned out.
Well, hopefully it would be about 6-8 months.
That's
Keep my interest for more than a week or two.
That's perfect time.
So anyway, thank you all for watching. I appreciate it.
No, Zave, thank you so much. That was terrific. Appreciate that very, very much. So next we have my dear friend for, I don't know, 50 or 60 years, Donna Ferrato.
Okay.
Maybe not that long, Donna, but it feels that long.
Yeah, I know. I'm hard to take over a long period.
So that's saying it mildly.
Most disabled. Okay.
So Jay, we'll dismantle Zave and get Donna to share her screen.
Actually, me.
Yeah. Got it.
Sorry. Right.
All good. All good.
And Donna is promoting everything, but in particular, her book, Holy. So you have to, Donna, tell us everything about it and how you started, and we want to know it all.
There I am. There's
Gabby, there's Donna.
yeah.
Donna.
Trans man.
I'm trying to share the screen here.
There you go.
1 second. Nope, wrong one. Here. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna pin Donna. 1 second. Can you see Donna now?
We
No,
see
oh, yeah.
we see the screen that says Holy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And okay. Okay.
All right, Donna, it's all yours, dear.
Well, first I want to say thanks to Zave and also to Burroughs. Look at guys, those were great presentations and I enjoyed it and I understand a lot more about both of you from looking at your work. I guess I only had one question and that was for Zave. It's a question, Zave, about, do you touch things when you're out there as a street photographer? Do you fool around with what you see in front of you? And because that picture of the newspaper, I mean, I know that you're a guy who does these big corporate jobs and you make a lot of money, but couldn't you have just opened up the paper that was on the ground and just like photographed it like that so that you could record the date? Or did
Didn't
you
occur to
not
me at the
think-
time.
Didn't occur to you?
Didn't occur to me. You know, I think sometimes when you're out in the street, and especially during COVID, when you got the garb on, you're reacting a lot more just intuitively and quickly because you're not that comfortable. You know, I must admit, when I was out there, I was probably a bit nervous all the time. So that shortens your thinking time. It didn't occur to me at the time, but you know, that's what's interesting about this kind of work, is that you come back from a shoot and then you discover what the heck you were doing. You're not always conscious of it. Sometimes it's just intuitive.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a street photographer through and through for the last 50 years. So when I see anything, whether it's a human or an object, I'm immediately thinking how to frame it, what I need to get out of it. And I don't ever just walk away. No, when I think I've got it, because I know I never have it. I am never satisfied.
You know, this
Tell me
reminds me, Donna, of an interesting conversation between Leonard Cohen and Bob Dylan. And Leonard Cohen was known for spending years writing a song, really a long time. And Bob Dylan would just spit them out, you know, just not really refine it, just sit down, stream of conscious and do it. They're both obviously very legitimate ways of working. I did get very concerned, or very, spent a lot of time thinking about composition and how to tell the story. But the idea of capturing the data in the newspaper didn't occur to me.
Well, so I'm gonna just take you guys right into this. I'm not one to beat around the bush, you know, and for me, what is really important to understand about my work and why I've been doing what I've been doing for 50 years is because a long, long time ago, I understood that there was a war on women. Way before, maybe before some of you were even born, I got that. Not because anybody was beating me up. It's not personal in that way, but because I saw how people were treating women all the time. I mean, ever since the Bible was printed, people with wombs have been bought and sold like property. I grew up as a Catholic, and I was forced to go to church and forced to make my Holy Communion and forced to do all the catechism stuff. And I could never understand, and I would constantly question, why with this Trinity thing, is it the Father, the Son, and the Ghost? Where the fuck is the mother? How can you say that a ghost is more important than the mother of God? I didn't last very long in Catholic schools, you know. My parents got me into a girls' school, which was much better for my template, for my theory about who runs the world. You know, what are we doing here? Who really makes things happen? I grew up thinking that women and girls do very well when they're on their own, or when they have a man or a guy who's their partner, who's an equal. I never bought into the submissive stuff. So from the very early days, I have been photographing women who are trying to get out of really bad situations and will do anything they can to be free of it. And then what happens to them afterwards, because it gets very joyful when a woman gets out of an abusive relationship. Although lately, because of COVID, women have been losing their jobs, having to stay home, taking care of the children, and living behind closed doors without any shields, with partners who are more like nightmares than any of you can ever imagine, unless you've been doing the kind of work I've been doing for close to 40 years. I know what these women are living with. And I know how wrong it is for anybody to ever be able to say to a woman what she has to do, who she is. Nobody understands who a woman is and what she needs to do, except that woman who's in her own skin And she knows what her dreams are. She knows what her fears are. And she knows what she has to accomplish. Let me just see here. Gabo, it doesn't seem to be moving. What am I doing wrong? Gabo, calling
It's
Gabo.
because I'm the one who's passing it.
Oh, okay. So let's see the first crazy picture, guys. Okay, what I want to say to you all. This is what I want to say to you. I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing. I'm just seeing holy. And the message of holy, as you see, this is
You're not moving the slides there,
not
dear.
moving. It's not moving, guys.
Oh, here it shows that it is moving. Let me try it again then.
Are you sharing the screen?
Yeah. Let me.
You have them as host?
I guess I'll have to go back. Sorry.
Yeah.
Let
So
me.
while you're getting that working, what I want to say is that, what I'm sharing with you tonight is not the normal nomenclature of what is photography and why we do what we do. This book, which has taken me a long time to do, is not about the business of photography. It's not about making money. Many of the assignments that I got through the years with magazines like Life and the New York Times and Time Magazine, I had to fight to get those assignments. They didn't want to give me those jobs. I had to convince them. And often I got turned down again and again and again. But I don't give up because I know what I was born to do.
Gabriel, you
Hey,
got
yeah, I'm not able to share. Okay, let's try it again.
To share. Should I be sharing this?
No, let me. Okay, is everyone seeing it?
We're
Yeah,
seeing
yeah. Now advance.
Okay, is everyone seeing
Yeah,
it?
that's the first slide. Okay.
that's the first one. Okay, this picture is from 39 years ago when I was pregnant with my one and only child in somebody else's bathroom. I just saw that globe and I stripped down immediately. I knew I had to get that picture of myself with that globe because I've always been looking for the light, always. That is my religion, looking for the light. This isn't actually the picture though, Gabo. What happened to that picture?
This is the one.
No, we put looking for the light in the globe.
Oh, it's now on the caption. Sorry, down below.
Yeah. But what happened? Is this what we created yesterday?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so this is Fanny, a little bit older, and wiser, and it's in a scary way, starting.
Fanny is Donna's daughter.
Yeah, and she's starting to get inculcated by religion, not from me or by her father, Philip Jones Griffiths. We were both convinced that religion was the opiate of the masses, and we were not going to put that on our child. But when she would go to visit my grandma, my Italian grandma, she would see all of these religious statues, and this really moved her, all of this. And I understand how it gets into young, impressionable minds. But for me, the proof that religion was so against women's rights and so destructive and harmful, aside from the fact that of all the abuses, the sexual abuses that were constantly happening but not being talked about with children and with women, and how the priests had all the power and the nuns were always submissive to the priests. But it's just all in that Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Ghost. So the Book of Holy is basically going after that, the religious teachings. Okay, let's go to the next shot. In the very early days when I was, just like a wandering photographer in the dark, I was kind of like wandering like a Jew in the desert. I didn't know where I was going or what I was going to do. And I really hadn't gone to school, and I looked at photo books, but my dad was a great photographer. And my dad was the one, although he was a surgeon, he was the one who really taught me, just work it, Donna, always work it. Use the light, use the the feeling and what the people in front of you are going through, because that's what my dad did. And then he was always setting people up too. I have no problem setting people up if it's a portrait. And in this situation, I'm taking a self-portrait in my mother's bathroom, and I'm making my hair up. I was about 28, making my hair up to look like an old woman, and photographing in my mom's bathroom on a tripod, and and just imagining what it would be like if someone was coming in at that moment. Now, the wild thing about this portrait is that it was a whole roll of film, a whole roll of pictures, 36 pictures of me playing in this bathroom with the hair and the powder and the lipstick. But then about 25 years later, after I'd been documenting the war on women all over the country, I looked at this old roll of film, and I saw that I had these bolts coming out of my head. Bolts. It was like the portrait of Dorian Gray, because I have become exceedingly angry that anybody would have the audacity to tell a woman what to do with her own body in her own home, and who would take the liberties with women's children like a lot of men do. Is just so outrageous. This is what I've been fighting for all my life. That's all that matters to me with this camera. The camera's a tool, but it's my weapon. Let's go to the next picture. This is what I believe. This is what I believe. This is my whole theory, is that forget about it. You think that things are going to be okay? No, women and children, don't believe it. There are some good men out there. Absolutely. There are some really great men. Frank is one of them. Gabo is one. I'm sure all of you guys who are watching this, you're good men. But there's you as good men. You know how many men are out there who see women and children as pieces of meat. You know that. You know how dangerous it is for women. And what's really, I feel very fortunate with, is that at an early age, my father said to me, Donna, don't ever trust any man, not even your father. And my dad wasn't a lecher. He was going to come after me or do anything behind my mother's back. He believed in my spirit. He believed I could fight with my father, but he made me understand that I should never allow any man to try to get the upper hand with me, ever. Go ahead. So these, you might think that my work was sort of formed when I started working for Life magazine and other, but no. And while I was doing this Book of Holy, I began to understand how I was looking at the world as a young woman. And I'm traveling around. I don't know anybody. I'm like a hobo with the camera, just traveling, at a little bit of money saved, and I was just going all over Europe. And in Paris, I met this guy over here. The guy's name is Hughes. He's on the ground. And one day he invited me to go to this big chateau with his girlfriend. And I meet this incredible girl, Chantal. And she sees me all the time with the camera. And I'm just a kind of young, impressionable American girl. I wasn't naked in this picture. I had my slip on and my white boots. But when I saw her up there, she jumped up on the well. That to me was the greatest picture, because to me, a woman's body is very strong, very, very strong. But with a camera, she's even stronger. This was the defining moment in my career as a photographer. I really didn't know a lot about domestic violence. I was never the kind of photographer who'd say, okay, domestic violence is a big story now. I better go out and start looking for pictures like this. I was into love, sex, people relating to each other. I wanted to know, how does a woman make a marriage work? Because I was a failure as a wife. I wasn't really kind of a woman. I wasn't a wife. Let's put it like that. And although I love my husband and I love domestic stuff, but I'm not a wife. I will not be in that position. So the marriage didn't end well, and I was on my own. And I started going around trying to learn from other women. The whole book of Holy is about me trying to learn from other women, as well as learning from my mother and my daughter and my sisters and my sisters-in-law, everybody and all the women. Like this woman here, Lisa, taught me so much about domestic violence. She taught me that a woman does not want to be in a situation like this. You know, it's all a lot of crap what people say, that women just, they want to be there. They love their husband. They love their life. They don't want to get out of it. She wanted to get out of it. She was trying to save her marriage and save her husband, who had become a real drug addict. She was doing everything she could to get out of the situation. And he was angry with her for disobeying him, for hiding his drugs. That's why she taught me so much about the will and the spirit of women. And I've watched her. I've been with her all these years. I've seen her grow through great heartache and really sad times, but she's come out of it so strong. She has beautiful grandchildren. Her sons are all really strong and healthy, as is her daughter. She's the rock of Gibraltar for her family. That's what I want women to understand. You never have to put up with this stuff, ever, because it'll only get worse. Go ahead. All of the women that I spend time with from the very beginning, I'm not with them to show the horror and sadness and the depressing part of their lives. I want to see them, you know, come out of the cocoon of violence and abuse and humiliation, where you think that nobody's paying attention to and you're invisible and nobody sees you. I want to be around women like Sarah Augusta Jones, who knew that if she stayed in her relationship with this abusive guy who basically had raped her when she was 13 and got her pregnant, she was going to end up dead. And so that's when I moved in with her and her children, her two sons. And I lived with her off and on for over 3 years, watching her getting stronger, finding her wings, you know, taking it out there, finding people who would help her to get stronger, even with, you know, training, doing martial arts training, and her parents who are right behind her. They were very helpful, and the shelter people were helpful. I mean, for every woman needs to understand there is so much help for you out there. You don't have to put up with this kind of abuse, any kind of abuse. None of us do. Not in any way, not in the workplace, not in the home, not in the church, not in the synagogue, not in the streets. No, women are the power, and women have to live like thinking that way, understanding how incredibly strong they are. Okay, let's go ahead. This is what it's all about. Come on, this is what women are fighting for. And now we're really fighting for it really hard, because we've seen what it's all about. If we listen to these men and they say, stay in your marriages, go ahead, have babies, even though you can't afford them, you know, don't waste any of that sperm. Save that fetus, you know, even if you're going to die when you deliver, it doesn't matter. Save the fetus. No, you know, women are realizing, what am I going to sacrifice myself so that I get locked up for months at a time with a man or a partner? It could be a woman too. There are certainly enough violent women out there who are abusive with their lesbian partners to say that it's not a gender thing. Domestic violence is not a gender thing, but it happens predominantly with males on females. That's predominantly. So for right now, even though this picture was taken back in the 70s out in California and Santa Cruz, I say this is what it's all about. And that's why it's great that we have so many women of color, especially brown and Black women, who are saying they're not going to take it being treated like chattel anymore and being told to sit down and keep their mouths quiet. They're gonna fight for their rights, and that's what we're doing right now. And women have the power. We've got a woman in the White House, And I don't care what any of these Republicans are going to try to do to that decision. It's not going to work because the women won't let it work. Like, look at this. This is my daughter. This is the moment that she's giving birth in the bathroom. I had a home birth. My daughter wanted to have a home birth, but she was terrified. She was terrified of the pain until her mother-in-law, and that's her husband right there, Allah, her mother-in-law said to her, Fanny, don't be afraid, because the pain is significant. It is powerful, but it is the most beautiful, exquisite pain that a woman will ever feel. That's what she took through her whole labor. She was so powerful. She really came into herself. And this was her moment of ecstasy, just at the moment that her son was born in the call. He was born in the call. Took her 6 hours. And then I had my little grandbaby boy. What a character he is. But that was amazing. Watching my daughter have this kind of a moment where she came into her skin from head to toe. I'm proud of her. This is this was an assignment for New York Magazine to photograph at a sex party in Brooklyn on a boat. It was called the chemistry sex party. And I like sex parties because I see it, a lot of these things, the women are always the strong ones, and especially at chemistry, because the women are the ones who rule. If a man is a predator and he's walking around in a place like this, he gets bounced. The women are watching, everybody is watching. Everybody is watching for men who are overstepping their boundaries. So you might think, well, how'd you get that picture? You know what? I got it by being patient, by not trying to get any pictures as we circled around the island for 3 hours. And at the end of the evening, as we were getting ready to dock in Brooklyn, the man who runs the party, his name is Kenny Blunt, he made an announcement on the boat, and he said, there's a photographer here from New York Magazine, and if anybody feels comfortable being photographed, please come forward and meet her. And it was this incredible couple, Sarah and Preston, and I didn't know them, they didn't know me. I don't know why they gave me this opportunity to get to know them in their most private moment, but it was just amazing seeing her. And there's a whole little dance that happens in the Book of Holy where you see her, because I'm not orchestrating anything. I'm just thankful to be there. I'm thankful for every second that I have with people, especially in a situation like this, but really every situation. I'm just thankful to be alive and be with people. But in this situation, I saw her going from being a shy, demure woman to suddenly taking over and having her boyfriend the way she wanted to have him. And I realized what a powerful woman she was. But then afterwards, as I tried to get to know her, I asked, what do you do? Because I'd like to be able to say that in the magazine if they use your picture. And she told me, I have a book coming out next week. You can come to my book party. Her book is called After the Eclipse. And I advise you all to read this book because it is the true story of this woman whose mother was murdered by an intruder who came into the house and started to rape her mother as she was sleeping. She was 12 years old. Raping him. Then he went into the cupboards and he took the butcher's knives out. This is what she heard. And she had to stay hidden until this guy was finished. And then she came out when he walked out of the house because she realized her mother was protecting her. Her mother was such a beautiful, brave woman. She was a single mother. And she spent the next 12 years of her life trying to find out who killed her mother. And that's what this book is about. And it's an extraordinary book about a woman who does not give in to hate and anger and bitterness and rage. She lives for love, like her mother was. This woman embodies love, but she also embodies a woman's right to choose how she wants to love. and who she loves. That's what it's all about. She's my hero. And this,
Donna,
yes?
just a quick reminder, just be mindful of the time.
Okay, so I think we only have about 3 pictures. You know, I'm trying to keep it short. I'm used to always being the last one.
That's
showing.
my call. Be
Yeah.
quiet. Let her talk.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You told me just to
I
remind her.
did not. Let her talk.
Sorry. Then go ahead. Don't be mindful. Take your time.
No,
I'm
come on.
loving. I love the story.
The men all talk as much as they want. Come on, you think that
I'm just like, I take it back. All yours. All yours.
Donna, we need a new assistant, Donna.
No.
I'm
Gabo,
kidding.
Gabo is
No,
great.
no, no. My fault. My fault. I take it back. All yours. I'm giving it back to you. I'm not talking here anymore.
Love you, Gabo. Oh, here's my little guy, my loving guy. So this is an amazing woman here. Don't play with that now, right? This is an amazing woman. Nice. You know, this is nude Catherine. She went always around the world, especially around New York, naked, because she felt that people make too much about the body, you know, too much. There's too much mystery and there's not enough respect. No, Ryan, you can't touch that. That's the mouse. The mouse will jump up. You will become a mouse. If you touch that, you will become a mouse, and the witches will make sure. Oh. Okay. No. Fanny, come and get her. Come and please. Oh no. So anyway, the thing is about nude Catherine is that she was arrested once, or a few times actually, for being naked. But I've never met anybody. Fanny, come here. Mamma mia. Okay, let's go. This is in the book. The story's in the book. It's a one. We were on the road trip with Mangina and nude Catherine. This is after I did We Live in Public. And so seriously, okay, go ahead. Let's and I love this woman. We were on the road for 2 weeks. They were naked. I wasn't naked in those days. I was just watching people. But you know, she and Mangina were always naked and they were always high. And I wasn't high either. I was just taking pictures, trying to understand who are these people? How do they have so much guts? You know, and I think for her, she's very political. She's a totally political animal. Her name is Catherine Cronus. And there are a few pictures of her in the Book of Holy. Because she is really, this is holy work, what she's doing, sacred. Let's see, what's the next one? Wonderful, you know, No Step Back, Madrid, Spain, 2019. This is what we're fighting for. This is all women want. I don't understand why it's so difficult for people to understand that women's bodies belong to themselves. We control our reproductive rights. If we make mistakes, that's our problem. But women are really very mindful of what they want to achieve with their lives, with their bodies, with their love. And I am all for giving women the trust. Let them go. Let them show what's happening. And we're going to see that more. For the next 4 years, they're going to be amazing. We're going to see a lot of good changes coming. What's the next picture, Gabo? Holy. Okay, this is it. I want you all to know that Holy is completely a handmaid's tale. I actually did all of the artwork myself, all of the captions handwritten, everything, just doing it over and over and over and over again for 3 years. My poor publisher at Powerhouse, he was so scared. He didn't know where I was taking him. I kept destroying. I have like 3 dummies. I kept destroying them because they didn't say it well enough, what I was trying to say. You know, because I've been really so shocked at what Trump has been able to get away with and what this country seems to want to support with a president who hates women. Really, I have been in terrible pain. I'm surprised I'm not dead yet from this monster that's been eating me inside. Okay, but then I made this book, Holy, which says it all. This is it. Let's go to the, Come on, we got Leah. Yeah, this is the woman who walked naked. She was marching naked all around Washington, D.C. on January 17th, 2000, or what was it, January 3rd or so, I forget, but on the, 2017. This is what it's all about, We can go naked, we can do anything we want. Doesn't mean that any man has a right to put a hand on us, ever, unless they have permission, unless we give our consent. That has to be the law. That's what has to change in our society. And this woman, Leah O'Loughlin, she embodies that courage and spirit of defiance that's in every woman. That's, for me, the Holy Spirit, is the spirit of defiance in women who are seeking knowledge. They're seeking knowledge. They're not trying to be obedient to what the man wishes for them, for himself. No, we have our own Holy Spirits, and that's what we need, and it has to be free. Okay. This is one of the pictures that is also a defining moment for me, when this boy is shouting at his father for beating his mother. And I tell you, when I took this picture, it's very interesting, Zave, because I was using a flash here. And in these early days of working for Life magazine and photographing domestic violence, I was just beginning to use a flash. I didn't really know what I was doing. But in some situations like this, where it was pitch dark in this house at 9 o'clock in the morning, but all the shades were drawn, and I'm fumbling to get my Vivitar flash on, and I had learned from Philip, because Philip was really a master at lighting, and he always said, just bounce the flash into the ceiling, Donna, and either put your 2 fingers in front of it or else use a plastic spoon. So I had a little white plastic spoon, and I got the flash on top of the camera and just, was able to take this picture in pitch darkness with just a little bit of light going into all the corners of the room. But it happened so fast, that I never even saw what was on the television screen. I didn't see that I had the mother there in the background. I just knew that what those cops were feeling was exactly what I was feeling, which was amazement that this boy had so much courage and was standing up to his father and saying, I hate you for hitting my mother, and don't you ever come back to this house. That was it for me. That was it. This is what I try to show, as I try to show that children have voices, just like women have voices, and they don't like what they see. They don't like the parents fighting. They don't like the chaos. They want it to stop. And adults need to start listening more to the children. Seriously. Okay, let's go to the next. It's my mother, in the moment that my father died, you see him in the back on the bed. I love my father, but my father, he was an incredible man, and he taught me a lot, but he was not good to my mother. He was not faithful. He was not true. He cheated on her. My mother kept getting him well. He was bipolar. She kept healing him. And every time she healed him and he'd get strong again, he'd go right back out and do the same things that would bring her down. And it just like was devastating to me, but she wouldn't listen to me. She would never desert him. But finally, at the hour of his passing, she knew she was liberated, and my mother never cried. I didn't see her shed a tear. And what she said to me was, come on, Donna, let's put all your dad's stuff away, put him in boxes. And he was in the Veterans Hospital, and they're going to pick him up. He had a casket with a flag over. It was a good send-off for my dad. But my mother, this was it. This was her chance to be a free spirit for however long that lasted. And I really love my mother. My mother taught me how to be everything that I am today. And nobody can take that away from me. Let's go to this the next picture is this is what really drives me crazy with this country, that we have so many beautiful children who are living in shelters and they don't have homes, and their mothers are working so hard to take care of them, to keep them safe from the abusers, to keep them out of harm's way from violent neighborhoods, to do everything. And yet And yet somehow these children are not the ones that matter. Let them live in shelters. No, we're not going to worry about them being able to get everything that they need to grow up strong, good food, good water, safe neighborhoods, good schools. No. We're going to worry about the unborn fetuses. That's what we're going to put all of our time into. That's what I don't get, really. And that's what I will fight to the end of my life. This is it here, folks. This is what for me is the most symbolic picture I ever took. The hand of the Mother of God. Now, this is Nina Hartley's hand. She's a porn star. She's a beautiful woman, really smart. She's like in the Mensa Society. I respect her a lot. But to me, that is the Mother of God. How the women are always holding the men up, always helping them to be who they want to be, to have pleasure, to feel appreciated, to be understood, to be known. What about the woman? She sacrifices herself. Maybe sometimes it makes her happy, but for me, this says it all, the hand of the Mother of God. What else do we have, Gabo? That's the end. This is all I want to say.
So Donna, tell us about the book. Donna,
okay, come back.
Wait. Tell us about the book, where people can get it.
Hey, so here's the book. Here it is. I just want you all to see it. See the blood on the pages, the blood, and this whole book here, even like this is all my insanity. If you want to know really how insane Donna Ferrato is, you got to get the Book of Holy, because nobody tried to hold me back. Nobody. Daniel Power, not my daughter. My daughter, for the first time, my daughter would never let me show any of the pictures that I took of her before. Never. I wasn't as lucky as Sally Mann. I didn't have all that approval early on, My daughter said, no, you can't show any pictures of me, but she let me take pictures of her, as did my mother and my friends. And then there's many self-portraits in the book too. But these pictures, these are all made from duotones. These are made from duotones. And what's incredible, what Gabo and I learned how to do, especially Gabo, with the making of this last iteration of the Book of Holy, was that we learned through a bit mapping, we learned how to put the captions right onto the page. Every photograph that you see in this book was handmade and put onto a page. And then all the pages were sent to a man in Rhode Island. And he made these duotones. And they're really beautiful. The quality of the imagery in this book is just so silky. It's
And if you look into the chat room now, there's a link where you can purchase the book through the Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah.
So I got to tell you guys, I mean, Burroughs, Zave, Donna, what a great night. You guys did a phenomenal job. Powerful work from beginning to end. I cannot tell you how proud I am of a night like tonight. This is why my wife had this idea for projections, and who always deserves all the credit for this, as she always tells me.
Yay, Sylvie! Yay!
But that was just great work. If anyone has, and I have to tell you, the chat room is lighting up for everyone. I mean, just great work, love it, passionate, all of that. You guys did a phenomenal job. Really, really great. And I can't thank everyone, for jumping in and staying on, through the entire evening. If you have, just for everybody, if you have ideas, if you have projects and you want to present, just please reach out to me. We're always trying to get everybody on. Everyone that wants to be on is on. And we hope the next time we have Burroughs on, he will have his book. That's the goal.
Yes.
That is the goal, right?
Yeah.
And we're gonna make Zave a talking photojournalist in the purest sense. Get rid of that commercial crap. But no, really, thank you everybody for coming on. It was really a terrific night. You guys want to say anything before we go off? Donna, Burroughs, Zave?
Yeah, I just want to say, Donna, I was at the Women's March in Washington the same day you were there.
Yeah,
I didn't see that woman, but I was there, and I was also at the New York Women's March as well.
cool.
I photographed them, and my photos was in an exhibition at the Arsenal at the New York City Parks Department.
Yeah,
A few of my images was an exhibition of the Women's March in New York City.
excellent. That's great. You know what I have to say though about that, Burroughs, is that we're all very different in our minds. What we allow into our heads, our field of vision, you know, we're all searching. We're like these very strong searchlights that go out. We have a little camera around our neck, but we know what we're looking for. I don't know what you're looking for. I don't know what Zave is looking for. I know what I'm looking for. And I don't need to set it up. For me, that would be very boring to set it up because it's all out there. The field of vision for me is so incredibly rich and enchanting. I'm just looking for powerful women who are saying basically, fuck you. Yeah, to anybody who tries to hold them back.
Donna, I don't want you to hold back, Donna. It's yeah, but so yeah, I again, thank you so much. Everyone have a great Thanksgiving. We all have something to be thankful for. Gabby, you know, I appreciate that. Sorry we gave you a little bit of shit, but you know, welcome to the crowd.
It's all good. It's all good.
All right, that's good then. Jay, thanks very much for being our host,
No problem.
our tech guy. Great job. So thanks everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving. Be safe and be happy. And as Donna would say, have sex all the time.
Yeah, love you.
See you, Donna.
Love yourself.
Laura, Zave.
I don't say sex have all the time. I say love yourself.
We could be like Jeffrey Toobin.
No.
Sorry, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Turn off the recording.
Thanks.
That's all it is.